Hello everyone, my name is Fyer-Huné. I'm from Fire for Films, and today we have the lovely Ben Cole here again to give us a deep dive into the industry a bit more. So Ben, do you want to take away?
Yeah. So today I'm really going to talk about the challenge of being a film student and doing really well, and then leaving your experience and education feeling like you're going to become the next Tarantino or I can't think of a female director. That's awful, isn't it? But someone, that you're really going to get it into the world, and then all that's open to you is becoming a runner. And that can be very disappointing and an extreme trial in your journey. So the challenge really is to use the experience of walking into the profession as opposed to a learning experience to discover what you want to specialize in, even if you want to specialize in all jobs, generalized filmmaking. So there's three opportunities really. You could start your own production company. You could gather with friends that you have trained with and learn the way, in fact, a lot of young people are learning these days, which is saying, I am a filmmaker. I've trained, I've graduated, and we just need to start making films. Well, obviously, you're not going to start making $100 million Netflix movie.
No, it's not that easy.
However, the only people that can actually make films about your generation are you. So if I was going to try and make a film about LGBT from a 19-year-old's perspective, well, I'm heterosexual, I'm 60 years old, I'm going to make a rubbish film because I don't know what it's like to be your age. So if you're going to get into that, then it's a long, long journey to write about your generation, about the issues in your generation, about your personal wounds, your personal experience of life, and then work that into a feature film. I volunteered when I first got my Red camera with a young guy who had just graduated from film school. And he wanted to write about his teenage years in Brighton as a bit of a party animal. And he said to me, don't worry, I've written the script, but I haven't come up with an ending yet. And I was like, okay. And he said, look, we'll come up with the ending once, during the shoot. We'll find out what the ending needs. And we spent a whole year going out in every other weekend, shooting one scene, shooting another scene, taking acid in the park, going to parties. He had this sort of super ego as a James Bond type character. And we did really well. Unfortunately, we edited the film, and we decided that the ending of the film, he would walk into the sea committing suicide because he was just dissatisfied with his life. And you didn't know whether he managed it or not. And I sent it to a movie producer that I was working with, the movie producer of Made in Dagenham. And I said to him, would you give me a crit about this film? Because I've no idea whether it's any good or not. And he sent me back, he had a conversation with me, which he said the plot is awful.
Oh.
Because this character has no redeeming qualities at all. And we watch him making mistake after mistake after mistake. And in the end, he commits suicide, and we're like, there's no payoff. And I realized that the difference between a good film and an excellent film is huge. So one could go into creating your own production company, being a director, having a mate who was interested in photography, and start from the bottom that way. And the problem with that is that it's a very long journey to discover how to make excellent films. So that's one scenario. The second scenario is that you go into a production company that's already established with very experienced people, and you beg a job from them, and the only job you're going to get is a runner. Now, what is a runner? A runner is somebody who runs around doing all the meaningless tasks around a shoot to help it flow properly. And that is very difficult. You are a slave, basically. And I did a certain amount of running. I went to drama school, and then I left drama school, and I wanted to get into the film industry. And my older brother rang me up. In fact, I was a chef in a kitchen in the Dorchester Hotel. I was a sauce chef. I was quite high up. And he came to the back door and he said, "Are you happy doing this?" And I went, "No, I hate it." He said, "Well, look, my runner's job is free at a commercials production company in Wardour Street. I've just been promoted, and maybe you want to do that." So I took my chef's hat off, threw it in the bin, went up to the head chef and said, "I'm leaving to going to the film industry." And he said, "Go on, get out of here. You're not made to be a chef. You've got to be really tough, and you're a sensitive, nice guy. So off you go." So I'm like, okay, no, that was a blessing to leave. And I found myself buying coffee, delivering big rolls of film to the cutters, going out and buying flowers for the director's wife, sorting out the props room. I even spent 7 days in the basement of a jewelry shop where they'd stored all these film canisters, and it had got flooded. So all the film had gone acidic, and I had to wear rubber gloves and boots. And I spent 7 days sorting out all these films that hadn't been ruined. And then they let me go after that. And I thought I'd done really well and worked really hard. And one day, the head of the commercials company called me up onto the roof in Soho, where there was astroturf and a nice chair and table. And he said, "What do you want to do with your life? Do you want to be a cinematographer? Do you want to be a director?" And I said, "No, actually, I wanted to be an actor." And he said, "All right, go and be an actor," and sacked me. So it's a ruthless world. So what I'm really getting to is, if you work out that you want to be, say, a cameraman, a cinematographer, which is what I wanted to do, and you get a job as a runner on a film or a TV series or a commercial project, and you find yourself running around outside the set, what you really want to be is on set, watching all the professionals dealing with problems, and you watch how they solve problems. The problem is that you are the lowest of the low, and you're running around outside, maybe parking cars or making coffee or photocopying bits of script. So here's my advice. You get that job and you volunteer for every important job that is going, and you do it well. And while you're doing it, you have 2 opportunities. One is to observe what the bosses, the head of departments, are doing. Now, when it's going well, it'll look easy and you'll think, well, I could do that. I've trained at film school. I know how to do that. I know how to set up a camera. I know how to press record button. I know how to pan and tilt. However, you watch for when there's a mistake or a problem. And then you get your little notebook out and you write down how they solved that problem. Like I used to have a little black book, and I used to go in when they were doing a pre-light, which is the night before a shoot. And I would volunteer to go in and assist the cameraman, the DOP, the lighting cameraman, and say, "I'd like to help. And I'm not going to charge you anything, but I really want to learn what he's doing." And I would get into conversation with the DOP and ask him, "Why do you put a light up there?" Or, "Let me help you with that. Why are we doing this?" And you know what? They loved it. because they suddenly realized they knew a lot. So if you want to be a producer, you're running around, you observe the producer is hassled, you've got nothing to do because on set there's often hours of really boring time. If it's going well, it's boring. You're not asked to do much. So I would go up to a producer during that time and ask them questions. How did you get into the business? I noticed that there was a problem today where the lighting hadn't turned up. How do you solve a problem like that? What were your choices? And what they understood was that I was precocious. They could see that I was more than a runner, that I was observing things around me, and that when there was a problem, I was right there. What can I do to help? And that taught me about teamwork, and it taught me about the hierarchy on a film set. Now, you know, it's a bit like the army. You've got colonels and captains and majors, and then you've got the troops on the ground, and then you've got the young boys running messages everywhere. And to understand how the different hierarchy goes up, how when a mistake happens, it's always the blame rolls downhill. So the DOP will blame the camera operator, who will blame the first camera assistant, who will blame the clapper loader, who will blame the runner. So the runner always gets the blame, so that the people above him don't get sacked because they've done a major problem. So if you observe that and you can see a mistake before it starts to happen or while it's happening, then you can go up to the person and instead of saying, we've got a problem, there's no coffee, you know, which is a big problem if you're a runner and you're supposed to be serving coffee 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And the leading actor, you know, Peter O'Toole hasn't got a cup of coffee and he's shouting, where's my coffee? And getting pissy. That could upset him, and then the director gets upset and says, you know, why didn't Peter get a cup of coffee? Whose problem was it? And then that blame goes downhill. Instead of that, you go up and you don't talk about a problem. You always go up and talk about a problem by offering a solution. So you go up to the assistant producer, you say, there's no coffee, so here's my solution. If you let me, I'll drive over to the shop and I'll pick up some fresh coffee. And in the meantime, here's some instant. I could make up some instant and then run over and get some coffee and I'll be back in 10 minutes. So you don't turn around to a director ever and say, there's a problem. What do we do about it? You always come up with solutions. And that way, people see that you're a real creative solution. You're very creative in your solutions to problems. And sooner or later, people will look around and they'll go, now, which of the runners can I trust to do this important job, like taking the hard drives with all the rushes back to the production studio because we're going for a wrap drink. Now, of course, you want to go for a drink at the end of the day with the heads of departments so you can sit around in the pub, be part of the team and do that. So you have to weigh up in your own mind, which would I rather do? And fast, you have to be fast. So if you want to be important on the set and dependable and responsible and reliable, you will volunteer to take those rushes back to the office and really concentrate on it. Go in a taxi, ask the assistant producer, how do I keep these rushes safe on my way back to the production office? Have a mobile phone with you, have the right phone numbers, be organized, anticipate the worst case scenario, what could possibly happen, anticipate it and come up with solutions. And tell a producer, if a mistake happens, immediately you ring the person that asked you to do that job and you say, this has happened and here is my solution. These are our choices. So they don't have this hassle of, shit, this runner's fucked up again. They don't know what they're doing. I can't trust them. If you ring them up and say, this has happened, it was beyond my control, but this is what I should do. I can do this, this, or this. Which would you rather me do? They see you are capable when the problem happens. So get on the set, try and find the best production you can be. It's better to be a runner on a top production than a director on a short film that's going nowhere, that no one's ever going to see. It's even better to be the director on a short film that no one's going to see and a runner on a top production, because then you're on that film set and people are asking you, oh, you know, what experience have you got? Oh, well, I'm working on a big movie at the moment. And people go, God, you know that guy, he's just a runner, but he's working on a movie. I'll give you an example. I went to the National Film School. I was teaching directors how to work with actors after I graduated from drama school, because what I realized was that directors didn't know how to work with actors. They came from the editing or producing background. So I volunteered at the National Film School, and they found out that I was an actor. So they offered me a part in one of the end of term third year films with a mate of mine. And on the set was a runner. He was a short, weedy little ginger-haired guy who was running around clearing up the cups, but he was brilliant at it. He had a great sense of humor, he was enthusiastic, and he was always coming up and he knew your name. And he said, you like milk and 2 sugars, don't you? Would you like a coffee? And I was like, God, this guy's great. He's really looking after me. Well, 10 years later, my mate who was working on that film rang me up and said that he'd just been on a major Hollywood movie, RoboCop 2. And he walked onto the set for this little bit part, and this ginger-haired guy came up to him and he thought, I know this guy. I remember this guy. Oh yeah, he was the runner on this film at the National Film School. And he said, oh, hi, how are you doing? And the guy went, Adam, it's really nice to see you again. You know, we were great mates on that little film at the National Film School, weren't we? And it was really nice to see you. And he said, great, yeah, what are you doing on this film? He said, I'm the director. So never, ever underestimate the talent of a runner who may just be studying a film, working on a mate's film, because the next year he could be a director of a major movie. So always, always be nice to the runner, because if you're not nice to a runner, the runner will remember you. And when you're a bit older and you're looking for a job and that runner is suddenly gets his break, he's going to remember exactly how you treated him as a runner. So as a runner, one has to accept that people are under tremendous stress on set and they got fraught with problems. And if they are upset with you or unhappy with you, find out the route of least damage. So somebody turns around and says, oi, you, get over here and fucking pick this thing up. I've been asking you for the last 10 minutes. Fine, put down what you're doing, go get it up. I apologize, sir. I mean, the best runners always called me sir. I don't know why. It felt weird because it was a bit like, you know, like I was in, there were sort of a waiter in some big hotel or something. But I knew that they had, they could put themselves in a place of service. And they were obviously very imaginative. I'm going to tell you one other story. I was director of photography on a short film that was being directed by 2 casting directors. And they were walking around like they were Scorsese or they were the Tarantino. They were lauding it about, ordering coffee here and all this sort of stuff here, and sitting on their chair almost with a loudhailer. You know, it was ridiculous because we were all working for very little, and I hadn't shot a drama for a while, so I was pulling out all the stops. I was flying my drone inside a church. just up the aisle. I was steady camming down this church hall, and I was just about to enter the church hall with the camera loaded on my Steadicam, and I was trying to get this shot done by lunchtime. And this guy with a hat, cowboy hat, came up to me and held the door open for me. And I went, "Thank you very much." And he said, "Do you just have 30 seconds just to have a chat?" And I was like, "Well, I have a heavy piece of equipment here and I've really got to get in there." And it would have been so easy for me to say, "You know what? No." But there was something about this runner who had been shadowing me and watching me and helping me all day long. And I said, "You know what? I've got 30 seconds for you." And he said, "I've got a script. He had this terrible stutter as well. He said, "I've got a script that I've written and I've saved £12,000 and I've worked as a filing clerk for 10 years and I've saved up some money and I love the way you work, and would you consider reading it and giving me some advice?" Now, if he'd said, "Will you shoot my film?" I'd go, "Look, I'm a busy guy, just a runner. Do you know how many people come along with a script saying, 'I like the way you work, will you shoot my film?'" But he asked me for advice if I would read his script. And I said, "What's your script about?" And he said, "It's about my life with Asperger's syndrome." Now, I have a stepdaughter who has possibly got one or two clicks on the Asperger's syndrome. And I was researching it at the time to try and help her get a job. And I was kind of interested in that. So I said, "Okay, I'll read it." And it was a piece of genius. He'd really written it. And we made that film and it won a Silver Award in Los Angeles. So he chose his moment really well. Not great, because I was struggling through a door with heavy equipment, but he asked the right questions and he was really economical. And most importantly, he asked my advice. "Do you have 30 seconds that I could just ask you a question, some advice? Because I love the way you work. I've been watching the way you work and I want to know why. Why are you so good?" Now, that's flattery, but I've had 40 years in the business. I should be good. And I was working on a short film which wasn't that great. And he wanted to know why. Why was I doing this? So once you become a runner and then you get the confidence and you've got to know the heads of department and have those little chats and watch them solve problems, you can then, at the end of the day, when you are in the pub having a beer with them, you can say, I'd really love to ask you a question about how you solved that problem this morning, because I thought it was amazing how you solved it. And I just want to know what choices you had. What are the choices when a light blows and the sun's going down and you've got no other examples? I went up to David Watkins, who's one of the finest cinematographers in the world. And I was acting in a commercial to earn money while I studied as a cinematographer. And we were in Belgium and he was asleep in his chair because he was about 70 years old. And some poor runner had to go up and wake him up and say, "We need you because we've got a problem." The sun was going down and they put up a light, but he's the director of photography. So he woke up out of his chair and he went, "Yeah, all right, okay, fuck a duck," he used to say all the time, which is really funny. And he grabbed a piece of paper off the floor and he gaffer taped it to the wall. And he said, "Right, point a light at that." And then he went back and fell asleep. And I said, went up to him at the end of the day and I said, I'm studying lighting. And I'd love to know, how did you come up with that idea? Why did you bounce the light off a piece of white paper that you found on the floor? And he said that he'd become famous because he was the first lighting cameraman to point the lights away from the actors and onto a piece of white wall. And it creates a huge source of soft light, which is very flattering on the face, because instead of a hard shadow, it wraps the light around. It's like soft, and it takes all the lines out of the face, and there aren't any harsh shadows. And I went, thank you very much. Went away, and he watched me writing notes. And then he came up to me afterwards and he said, I've got a few more tips if you want to hear.
Ah.
And so I said, of course, when there's a dull moment on set today, I'll ask you, because I know you're a busy man. No, it's all right. It's a dull moment at the moment. I'll talk to you about it. So I named the problem before, because I'd seen other people go up and the guy said, look, I just don't have time. I'm busy, right? You've blown it with that person. So you have to find the right moment. So being a runner is not about the job. The job is only an excuse for you to be on set and observe the people who are good and also the people who are terrible at their job. Watch out for that stressed out producer who's walking on set with dark glasses on, shouting at people. Now, then you can work out, because you can learn more from people doing mistakes and doing things wrong, because you learn, I'm not going to do it that way. And then you find a producer who walks on set with a quiet voice, has little chats with people, a first assistant director that doesn't shout at everybody on set, but walks up and says, how long until you are ready to go? And the guy goes, oh, it'll probably take me 30 minutes. Is there any way, how can you cut down? How can I help you to cut down that 30 minutes to 10 minutes? Well, I need some help. Right. We got any runners around? Yes, me. All right, this guy's going to help you out. Great. What is it that I do? Oh, I don't know how to do that. Can you give me a quick lesson? Instead of, fuck, he's told me to do that. I don't really know. I don't want to look stupid. So I'll just wander off here and try and work it out as I go along. And then 15 minutes later, I still haven't got it together because I'm too embarrassed to ask somebody. So often, you know, the DOP, he'd want some help and I don't know how to do it. So I would ask the DOP's assistant, how do I do this? Could you just give me a few tips on how I do this? You know, get asked to get a piece of equipment from another room to the other room, to the set, and that's called running. So you've got to run without knocking anything over. And you've got to open up a pelly case, grab a piece of equipment, and get back to set as quickly as possible. Well, learning things like shutting the pelly case afterwards and putting the clips down so that some other runner doesn't go and being asked, go and grab that box. And he grabs the box by the handle, lifts it up, and the lid opens and the whole contents, £100,000 worth of lenses, falls on the floor, which happened one time, and not to me, thank God, but to a young runner. And so you always lock a case. You always return a piece of equipment to exactly the same place that you picked it up. It's because I don't know about you, but all my equipment that's sitting there in the corner of my loft room has a place for every single thing, so that at the end of the day, when the film is wrapped, I can look at that case and I can see what's missing. If I put it back in a different place, I have to go through with a list and work out exactly where everything is. So if you're assisting the camera department and you are the lowest of the low, which is a second camera assistant, which is basically a runner for the camera guys, get in early on set. Be the first person on set, because the focus puller or the camera assistant will be the first person on set. He has to build a camera and ask him, can I observe you? Can I see what you're doing? And if if there's any chance you can talk me through what you're doing. Now, you'd think that was a pain in the arse, but people love mentoring. Find someone on the set that is doing the job you would love to do, and ask them if you could have lunch together one day, and ask them about their career, about how they solve problems. And if you get on really well, ask them to mentor you. So when I'm shooting on a set with my mates and I've got a problem, is there any way that I could ring you up and get a quick solution? And you think that's hassling them. You think that's pissing them off. No, 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 it's not. I love mentoring people, because you ring me up and you say, the camera's not working. Well, have you turned it on? Yes, I've turned it on. Ah, well, is it plugged into an extension lead? Yes. Well, has that extension lead got a trip switch? Yes. Push the trip switch. Ah, it's on. Thank you so much. Because that mistake has happened to me 1,000 times. And it's like getting a like on Facebook. The dopamine and serotonin level in my brain rises because I have helped somebody with a problem. And I knew the answer really quickly. And the guy's really grateful. And I walk away from that phone call thinking, I just saved a shoot then. So I feel great mentoring people. In fact, the mentor learns more than the mentee. So that's my advice for a runner. Get in there quickly, get whatever job you can, as close as you can to the central, to the lens of the camera, which is where the action's going on. And offer an opportunity, get any opportunity to learn, be the first on set, be the happy to do the jobs that no one else wants to do, but also watch out for the jobs that are going to give you responsibility. They're going to make the whole crew dependent upon you. So you become integral to the set. So the next time they do their job, they say, fuck it, that guy was great at assistant producing, great at camera assisting, great at helping the first AD. He's a good all-rounder, and he's capable and reliable. And when he makes a mistake, he owns up to it. And that's how you get up the ladder. You become an important, skilled person who knows that the job you're doing is only a stepping stone to getting into that top position that you want to do. And then you take all those skills you've learned on the big set with the big guys who know how to solve problems, and then you take that experience onto a small set with other students who are doing their own short film, and you say, I've just been working on a big feature film. I've been assisting Vittorio Storaro, some big name, and they will give you a responsibility. They will help you. I used to take my stills camera when it was first shooting video, and I would shoot a little bit of making of for the making of guy. So people saw me on set with a camera working. Just in the breaks, in the times I didn't have anything to do, I would start doing things. I would film the lighting setup of the DOP and just take some stills and make some notes. I'd ask them, what kind of film stock are you using on that camera? And I would write it down and go away and ask the camera assistant, what does this mean? The DOP just told me you were using this particular filter on the lens. Why? And they'd say, I haven't got time now. Oh, fine, no worries, maybe over lunch. I go up and find someone else. So it's a learning curve, not for what you learned at film school, but how to learn how professionals solve problems. I think I should be quiet now. I've been talking for a long time.
No, that was brilliant. We have come to the 30 minutes, but it's really opened my eyes to the idea of a mentor is a really good idea. I've never even thought about that, and now I'm like, do you know what? As a graduate myself, I feel like that'd be a really, really good way of solving problems and learning. Do you know what I mean? So no, I feel like this is all brilliant, and it's what people need to hear, because a lot of people have done other jobs and they just gave up because they've gone, I don't like this. as you put it earlier, I don't want to grab people chips and coffee. Like, so it shows you that, yeah, you have to do that sort of stuff, but you're not just getting chips or just getting coffee. There's a lot more you can get out of it.
Let me just interrupt you there. I was on a feature film where the director, writer, had got money from his film school as long as he got 13 of their film students on set doing work. I gave them the opportunity of working on his feature film. And these students were general media students. They weren't specialists. And one of the students was a bit of a spliffhead. And he was always walking around chatting to people and trying to entertain people and making the whole shoot about him, and everyone was getting really annoyed with him. And at one point we were on the seafront, on Brighton seafront, and the two leading actors were sit on the wall, and they have a kiss, and they turn around and all these seagulls are flying around them. Well, we couldn't instruct and train the seagulls to fly around them. So somebody came up with the idea, if we get a bag of chips, then we could throw the chips in the air and all these seagulls would come at the right moment. So we sent this runner, the annoying guy who was always stoned, go off and get some chips. Hurry up, run. You're a runner, run. So off he went. 45 minutes later, he still isn't back.
Oh, no.
Now, obviously, he was stoned. He'd wandered off. He thought, oh, right, so they just didn't want me on set. So I'll go off for a walk. I'll go and do some shopping. And we are waiting on set, ringing his phone. He'd left his phone on the set because he was stoned and he'd forgotten. And we were delayed 40 minutes waiting for this guy. And in the end, we sent someone else off. 20 minutes later, we sent someone else off to get some chips, and they came back in 5 minutes. So when he got back to the set, boy, was he in trouble. He'd held up a film set because of a bag of chips. So never underestimate the importance of a menial task, which could hold up the whole production. So every single little thing, the war was lost because of a horseshoe. Somebody had not nailed a horseshoe into the horse's hoof, and this was a messenger, and the whole war was lost because this message didn't get through. That's a famous story from the war. And so, a bag of chips could be the most important thing.
Exactly. So, unfortunately, I'm going to have to stop it here. But Ben, would you be up for doing another interview on your acting career? I feel like that would be brilliant to touch on. And then also go into what you actually do for your teaching, because I feel like that is going to benefit people a lot as well.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, until next time.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Ben. And that's Fyer for Films. And speak to you very soon, Ben.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Bye.